to the Addison Public Library, and with us tonight we have Donna from Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Northern Illinois. Tonight we'll be talking about the ITIN, the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. As usual, please feel free to ask any questions in the comments or send us a chat directly to the library if you want something maybe a little more confidential, but we'll answer those as we go. If not, we'll save them for the end. But drop those comments at any time. Donna, take it away.
Hi, Gabby. Thanks so much for having us. We're always so happy to show up at the Addison Library, and always feel so welcome. So I'm Donna Rasmussen. I'm the Assistant Executive Director, and I'm also one of the financial literacy educators at our agency. And we are an outlet located in Northern Illinois, suburbs of here in Woodstock, that groundhog or gopher. Well, it was going to be a really short video for you today. So, groundhog. So we are also in Lake County. So we have offices in Kane County and Elgin and Lake Fox Lake. But we can do our workshops and we can help people anywhere in the state of Illinois. So if you feel like we would like to get with a counselor, might benefit from figuring out how to create a secure budget or need help with credit card debt or something like that. We can help you no matter where you are in the state. A lot of the things that we do, most of the things that we do are funded by grants. So we do not have any fees associated with things that we do. So we can schedule a budget session or no cost to you. Also takes some of your time and some required paperwork. So I'm going to get started. This brand new workshop is our first night presenting it. So I would appreciate and love hearing back that. There are going to be questions that I might not know the answer, but they will help me to make this more cohesive and workshop for the next time. We'll be presenting it here at the Addison Library in Spanish on Monday night. So we're looking forward to that too. So the next slide. So what does ITIN stand for? It stands for exactly what you see on the screen, the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. This number is issued by the IRS. It's really for a very limited amount of services. Not a lot of things this number is used for. It doesn't authorize anyone to work in the United States. It's not valid for identification. No photo on it. It is not going to have your name and no identification bar or anything like that. So it's very limited what you do with it. And we're going to talk about a lot of things in TN. Oh, next slide. So the ITIN started way back in 1966. I did not know this until I looked this up. Like, how did they come up with this? The IRS and the Treasury could not process tax returns efficiently for people that did not have a Social Security number. A lot of people have, a lot of names are pretty common. And there's a lot of Mike Smiths and so they needed a way to have a unique way to identify people that did not have a Social Security number and that were not citizens of the United States, but were working and wanted to contribute and pay taxes. So they were working legally. So in 1966, they came up with the ITIN. Next slide. So with the ITIN, besides paying taxes and contributing to our country's tax base, you can do other things. It does allow you to do other things, and most of them, are kind of like boring things. So if you want to, this is something that's very important to people too, though. If you wanted to open a checking account or a savings account, if you want to contribute to an IRA or a 401k, something like that, the ITIN enables you to do that. So it is a lot like a Social Security number in that way, that anytime you open a bank account, they always ask for your Social Security number or your ITIN. And so ITIN is also structured in the same way. It's 3 numbers, then 2, then 4. And those 2 numbers in the middle are numbers that will determine an expiration date. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Some states allow ITIN holders to get a driver's license. If you are watching this and you're not in Illinois, you want to check with your DMV or the Secretary of State, whatever you call the place where you go to get a driver's license, and they will let you know whether or not you can get a driver's license with the ITIN. So Illinois allows something called a TVD, a temporary visitor driver's license with an ITIN. So you would just contact your Secretary of State, and they will make an appointment for you. There's no I don't know if they're in person right now. I think maybe they are, but either way, you do need to make an appointment now because they don't want hordes of people showing up at the DMVs now. So hopefully that will make them all in a much better mood, because I know a lot of times DMV people are not really happy people. So you can use an ITIN to show proof of residency. If you have an ITIN, it will have your address. So you can use it as proof of residency. And again, it allows more people to contribute and to pay into the tax base. I tried to find some really current numbers with this, Gabby, and I could not. So 2015, and I got this from the IRS website, in 2015, so 7 years ago, 4.4 million people with ITIN filed taxes and paid over $5.5 billion in payroll and Medicare. And Medicare is a really important one for everyone. So it's important that people who are working in the United States are able to pay their taxes and pay into Medicare. $23.6 billion in overall taxes were paid in 2015, according to the IRS, and I'm sure that number is a lot bigger now. For 2021, it will be huge. But once go ahead and go forward, because I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. So ITIN does not provide legal immigration status. So if you are here and you have not filed any paperwork, you can get an ITIN, but it does not provide you with legal status. It doesn't provide authorization to work in the United States, but you would provide it when you do go to work in the United States, because then it does provide you the opportunity to pay into taxes and to contribute to Social Security, and if there's any kind of savings plans or anything at your work. It cannot be used for identification. Like I said, there's no photo on it, and it doesn't provide Social Security eligibility. So the thing with ITIN is that it doesn't provide that eligibility for someone who is not a citizen of the United States. But if you are here and you go through the steps to become a citizen, you can then use that money that you've already contributed, and that will go towards your eventual Social Security eligibility when you're ready to retire. So it's a really big reason to work towards becoming a citizen, is that you can make use of the money that you're paying into Social Security now when you are ready to retire. One thing, and this is the biggest thing of all, and I think this is a thing that people get worried about, it is not something that is an enforcement tool for immigration. It's not a tracking thing. It's not checking to make sure people are legal or have any other kind of status. It's not an enforcement tool. It is strictly something that you need if you want to pay taxes in the United States. So next page. Yeah. So ITIN is not for everybody. Everyone doesn't need to apply for it. If you are going to file for taxes, you will need to apply for ITIN. So anybody filing a tax return needs to apply for ITIN, and especially anyone who is not eligible for a Social Security number. If you're being claimed as a spouse or dependent by someone who is filing taxes, you will have to file and apply for an ITIN. If you're required to provide a tax identification number for any other tax purposes. So I don't have a slide on this, but some of the other reasons you would get an ITIN is if you win a bunch of money gambling. If you go to the track and you hit it big, you win over $600, you need to apply for an ITIN because you will have to pay taxes on that money. If you are a third-party vendor, if you have an online store on, you're selling things on Amazon and you're selling over $600 worth of goods a year, you need to apply for ITIN because you'll have to pay taxes on that money. So there are reasons to have an ITIN that are not related solely to filing taxes, but for paying taxes. Next slide. So applying for ITIN is, it looks like it's pretty straightforward, but it can be kind of a hassle. You only file when you're filing an initial tax return. So if you've never filed taxes before, or you're married and your spouse has never filed taxes claiming you before, or you've never worked here before and you're filing that tax return initially, that's when you would apply for the ITIN. You don't just apply for it, like people apply for a Social Security card when they lose it. You would only do it when you're filing a tax return. And there's a Form W-7. It's called the Application for IRS ITIN. And that's the form you would fill out and include with your federal tax return. You also need to include, and this is the hassly kind of part, you also need to include original or certified proof of identity and foreign status documents. So if you have a passport, you need to include your original passport, a driver's license, a birth certificate from wherever you were born. So you need to file proof of identity and foreign status docs, and it can be difficult because you have to give up your originals, right? You can't just make copies and send them, but there is a way to send a certified copy, and we'll talk about that in another slide. But so the main thing you do is you fill out the Form W-7. You have all your documents, whether you're sending the originals or the certified copies. You mail those, your tax return and all the other required documents to this address, the IRS in Austin Service Center, and ITIN Operation PO Box 149342 in Austin, Texas, 78714. And Gabby, if you have anybody that's requesting this information, you can feel free to provide this presentation to them, the PDF version, or just ask them to shoot us an email or give us a phone call and we can provide the information for them. But this is, applying for ITIN is something that you just have to do when you're filing that very first tax return. Next slide. So some of the documents that you're required are things that I wouldn't want to give up my original passport to send it off, and not know how long it's going to be till I get it back. And I mean, it's kind of a hassle to get a passport, and I don't want it to get lost in the mail. So if you don't want to send your originals, you can use the IRS Taxpayer Assistance Center, and that's called the TAC. It's an acronym, TAC. So on the IRS website, there is a link that will take you to the tax center list. But what it is it's just filled with tax accountant, tax firms. So there's H&R Blocks, our tax centers. I think what is the other one where the guy with the costume stands on the corner? Liberty? Is it Liberty?
Yeah.
I think it's Liberty. So those places are probably not the tax. Thank you so much, Gabby. Those places are probably not tax centers, but because they are kind of mobile, they're in different places every year, but usually your H&R Block people are at the same place. There's one here in Harvard. There is one in Bolingbrook. They're really all over. There just is not one in Woodstock, and there is not one in Crystal Lake, which is where I live. But there is a huge list of them, and it's by state. So you can go
We've
to
got
the
one in
link
Schiller Park.
on the in the chat and look up Illinois and find one in your area. They're everywhere except for the Lake and Woodstock. There's a lot of them. So, and again, there's the address where to apply. And we can go to the next slide. So this is a great video that I could not find. I could not get the link to load up. So I didn't want to take it out because I think it eventually will be a nice video that we show. But so some of the ways that ITIN can benefit you is, like we said, you can pay taxes, and I'm going to try and remember all 6 things. You can pay taxes in the United States. You can you can open interest-bearing accounts. You can get a driver's license. It shows proof of residency. You can also use it to get health care benefits for your children, and this is an important one. You don't have to be a citizen to be eligible for all kids, but I do believe you have to have a social security number or an ITIN, and then your kids can be covered by insurance. And I think when you're a mom or a dad and you have little ones, that would be my main concern, of having a reason to have the ITIN would be so that my kids could be insured. So there are a lot of ways, and I'll tell you a funny story. This is kind of a personal story. So we had just moved to Illinois, and we came from San Diego. So we lived in the city, and when we would see like a coyote or fox, they would always be little and skinny and scrawny, and we always knew they were a coyote or fox because they were just like, they just didn't look very healthy. They're dying of, it's all scrub brush and weeds growing out in San Diego in the East County. So we moved here, and we lived not too far from a school. This is just a story about healthcare. So we lived really close to my kid's school, and we were driving. My daughter and I were driving. She was in 7th grade at the time. And I see this fox on the side of the road by this house. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's a fox right in the middle of a neighborhood. And I was freaking out, and it didn't look very healthy. It was like chewing its fur and stuff. And so I immediately, I call the police, and they're like, well, ma'am, it's a fox, and this is McHenry County, and they live outside. So, just leave it alone. And I'm like, but it's right by a school, and the school is going to let out. And so they said, well, call animal control. And I called animal control, and they said, well, it's a fox, and they live outside. So they kept telling me that. And I'm like, no, this thing looks sick. It doesn't look well. So my daughter's in the car with me, and one lady tells me, well, ma'am, they're probably more scared of you than you are of it. So if you get out of your car, just clap your hands really loud and yell, it will probably run away. So I looked at my daughter and said, the lady said you should get out of the car and clap your hands really loud and yell, and it'll run away. And my daughter said, well, why me? I said, well, your insurance is better than mine.
Oh.
So my kids had better insurance than I did. Yeah, and they were on all kids when we first moved here. So yeah, so that's my little story about healthcare and moving from the city to the boonies. So,
Yeah.
But ITIN is a great thing to have if you've got kids and you're not eligible for a social security number. So we can do the next slide now, Gabby. So here are the things you can do with an ITIN. You can open a checking account. You can open a savings account, a checking account. You can have an IRA. You can buy savings bonds. You can do a lot of things in the banking venue that you could not do if you didn't have ITIN. You can start building your credit. So when you first come here and you're renting, maybe you're thinking about, eventually you want to buy a house, well, you've got to have some kind of credit, not only, a way to maybe, save and make sure that you have the money for down payment and all the other things that go along with buying a house. But you really need to start building credit, and you cannot do that really without an ITIN, because to get a credit card, you need the ITIN or social security number. To buy a car, you need an ITIN or a social security number. So a lot of that credit building stuff is really dependent on having that ITIN. Qualifying for child tax credits. When you have children and you are working and you're paying taxes, there's a child tax credit. And lately, since the pandemic, it's been a really big benefit for families who are struggling. There's been, the child tax credit was an amount that was offered every month. And I think over the course of the year, you got half of that child tax credit, and then the other half you get when you file your taxes. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an accountant, and I'm not offering accountant advice. But you can also get healthcare for your kids, and that is a huge thing. Next page. Saving for retirement. There's nothing more important after your kids are off on their own and, taking care of their own health insurance. It's being prepared for retirement, paying your taxes into Medicare and the Social Security. Pot is huge too. A lot of people don't have any savings for retirement. They're depending on Social Security, and that's something that we keep telling people not to do. That you need to really think about that future plan for retirement, and with an ITIN, you can do that. Proof of residency and getting that visitor driver's license here in Illinois, you can get with your ITIN. So what happens if your ITIN expires? So you filed taxes, a couple of years ago, and then you didn't file. What do I need to do? What happens when it expires? Will I know if it expires? So if it expires, and you haven't applied for a new one, your tax refund is going to probably take longer next year when you do file tax. The next time you do file taxes, your tax refund is going to take longer. You can lose important tax benefits like that child tax credit, getting a refund with taxes you may have paid into the system. You really need to make sure that your ITIN is not expired. So when you file a tax return, if you haven't filed one in the last year or two, you need to renew it. I can tell you, it's kind of confusing, and I didn't put it in here because I just want to make sure I have all the facts right before it's totally in here. It is very confusing, but the two center numbers in an ITIN are, if they are numbers 90 through 99, with the exception of 93, those numbers are all expiring this year. I do know that, and I don't understand why 93 is not expiring, so I didn't want to put it in there. But so those two center numbers are the numbers that will determine whether or not your ITIN is expiring. So if you are not sure of it, you can go to the IRS website and look at the ITIN page, and it will explain. It will let you know what numbers are expiring this year or next year. So this year it's 90 through 99, with the exception of 93, are expiring. So if those are your numbers, then you know that you need, when you file your tax return, you need to file that W-7 and get certified copies of all of your documentation, and make sure you send that all in. So if your number's expired and you file it, you're going to probably get a letter back saying your number's expired, and then you have to redo everything. So next page. So here's another thing, expiring ITINs. If your number was not included, so if you didn't file taxes or your spouse didn't file taxes last year, in 2020, 2019, or 2018, your ITIN expired a couple weeks ago on December 31st. So if your ITIN expired on December 31st of 2021 and you're not filing taxes this year, don't worry about it. But if you're going to file taxes for this year's earnings, you, your spouse, and your children will all have to renew. It's very confusing, and the IRS website does a really good job of explaining it. And they do have some really good YouTube videos through the IRS that do a great job of explaining the ITIN. It's a very confusing, I didn't think it did a whole lot, but it does a lot and it's confusing. So you really should, if you have an ITIN and you're not sure, you should check out some of these websites that Gabby's posted in the chat. The next page. So the first thing you want to do if you do not have an ITIN and you're going to be filing taxes, fill out that W-7. You can get that form on the IRS website. And if you have TurboTax and you're going to be doing your taxes using TurboTax, you can pull that form up on TurboTax as well. But make sure you complete that form and include your spouse, your kids, everybody else who is going to be on your tax return if they do not have a Social Security number. Now, if you have kids that were born here, they're going to have a social, so you don't have to file or apply for an ITIN for them, just the people in your family that do not have one. If you haven't filed taxes in the last 3 years, you need to renew. And then you can call the IRS for help, and there's prompts that will direct you to the person you want to talk, the department you need to talk to. And it's really going to give you those prompts. Then it will have some recorded information and tell you what you need to do. But it's 800-829-1040. Next page. So if you need more help regarding your ITIN or any other help for anything regarding your immigration status or questions that you have about someone else's immigration status that's in your family, we collaborate with some other agencies, and Metsa is one of the agencies that we collaborate with, and they are a really phenomenal agency. They're very small. They have I don't think they have anyone that actually earns a salary through their agency, one person maybe. A gentleman, Ivan, was someone else who I consulted when I was making this, creating this workshop for ITIN. They are a phenomenal agency. They're located in McHenry, and they can help people get their passports updated and help with a myriad of other questions about your status as a non-citizen of the United States. And they have all kinds of things going on all the time. Their website, this picture is right from their website. So it has their contact information, and it's kind of small on this screen, but if you need that information, Gabby will probably load it up here on the chat, but you can also contact Gabby and ask for a copy of this presentation as well. We participated in an event with the Mexican consulate back in, I think it was in the summer, because it was incredibly hot in the room where we were. And then all of a sudden it was freezing and we had to open a door and let hot air in. So, but it was at the Catholic Church in McHenry, and 225 people came and got passports renewed or other documentation that they needed. And we helped with that and provided some information about vaccinations and things like that. So this is a really great, even if you don't need any help, just to go on there and check it out, see what kind of programs and services they offer. And they're really great people and always willing to help. So
I am having issues with their website, though.
And then
So
if
they
you
might.
want to contact our agency, we are able to kind of give some of those, answer some of those questions too. Some of the questions may take a little while because I think none of us are really professional ITIN people, but here's our contact information here, 815-338-5757. And no matter where you want it to go, if you wanted to, well, everything is virtual now. I always say that, but everything is through Zoom. But if you live in any county, you can just call us at the same number. It's all the same. All goes to one line. So I guess that's kind of it. I know it's feels really early, but I hope there's a lot of questions maybe.
Not yet. So in the meantime, I am going to go back to this one here with the sponsors.
Oh, yeah.
We're so grateful for CCS coming in here and providing all this information. But of course, they can't do it unless they get the support from these funders. So just wanted to leave this up for a moment as we wait for questions. If there's any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Again, I've mentioned you can leave them in the chat too for the library if you'd want more privacy or something. And if it's something that we can't answer today, we might be able to provide an answer on Monday when we come back in Spanish, and then I can make sure we provide the answer in both English and Spanish.
Yeah, that would be great. So we did just get. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know if I had my volume off or not. We did just get a grant from the Royal Business Bank, and they are supporting us for doing workshops in Cook County. So we're looking forward to doing some more workshops in Cook County. And then we actually got a couple more in some other libraries in DuPage County, because that's where Addison is, right? In DuPage?
Yes, DuPage.
Yeah, so we have another workshop next month in a library in DuPage, and off the top of my head, I can't think of it. We've got so many libraries coming now. So, but yeah, we're really grateful for all these funders.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I went ahead and dropped a link for the program survey. If you can go ahead and fill that out, just a couple minutes, whatever information you can provide. Donna did ask for any feedback on the presentation, if there's anything we're missing, just so she can make sure going forward she has information that's necessary. So please fill out that survey and give us all the feedback. If you say we didn't cover enough, you let us know and we'll add more to it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And Tom did such a great job getting this survey online. We struggled for a long time, tried to use a QR code, and once we went virtual, it was tough. But now we use Google Sheets for a lot of things, and Tom threw that on there too. So it's awesome.
Okay, well then I guess we're turning in for the night. If there's any lingering questions that you think of in the middle of the night, please feel free to send us an email here at the library. Mine is my last name, tafoya@addisonlibrary.org. Here, I'll leave that here in the comments as well. Or if there's any other topics you want to see, again, send an email so we know what we're looking for.
That would be great. Yeah, we're always looking for new workshop sources and ideas. So yeah, that would be really great.
All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And thanks again, Donna.
Thank you.